Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and welcome to the Real 50 Over 50. We are here today with Jennifer Urezzio, and she is just she's magic. So what she does is she is the founder of Soul Language. I don't know how she figured this out, but she's going to tell us today. But she figured out this language that your soul speaks, and it puts tangibility to soul and makes a conscious connection to enable crystal clear decisions for success. And I can tell you that it works because I've done it. I did it 2 years ago, and it works. And I'm going to pass this over and let Jen tell you a little bit more about what she does, and then we're going to get into a good conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Why do we want to have tangible words to put what we know deep down inside? Because we're silly humans, and humans love to have words for what they know deep down inside, and it allows you to accept it and create a conscious connection more so you can get clear and clarity. So, I was asking a bunch of big questions like, hello, I know my life purpose, but what do I do with this crazy little life purpose of being a powerful healer and teacher in the spotlight? And where are my people? Because I'm so cranky, and I went to a conference. I was more than cranky. I was full on blown warrior. And I went to this conference, and this woman sat down next to me and went, "We're going to be friends." And inside I went, "Totally." But why her? This is now my inside voice. Why her and not this other woman across the way? Then I don't care if I ever see them again. And what I heard through divine guidance was that's soul language. And I kept asking questions, and before long, I had a paradigm to put tangibility to soul. So each one of us has three core energies of soul. We call these languages. And by understanding your core energy of your soul, you can move from unconscious to conscious behavior. And then I help individuals who I call spiritual renegades, who aren't going to do it like anyone else does it, really receive from their big ways of being of service. I have this ability to see a business in my head and see where people's voice and their vision aren't aligning and work with their soul to help that align. And I guess that's what I do. It's a lot.
Well,
It's
what
a
you
lot.
do, I'm going to add a little bit of what you do because you came into my life probably about 5 years ago. We were
Yeah, through
invited
Kim.
to one of, yeah, no, no, not through Kim, through Carolyn Herforth.
That is right.
Yes, yes, we
I've
were.
been crediting Kim all these
Yeah, well,
years.
let me finish the story because it's such a good one. So Carolyn Herforth invited us to her little. Has this tiny, tiny, tiny little apartment in New York City with this amazing courtyard in the back, and she would host these random lunches, and you wouldn't know who else would be there. And Jen and I sat next to each other, and we immediately started talking about PR because she had a PR background. And then, it just, it was like there was nobody else at the table. We spoke for hours, and then we were connected since then. But we could not speak. Then what happened was we have this other friend, Kim DeYoung, and she lives. At the time, she lived like 2 hours from me and probably 4 hours from you, and
Far.
she just like, randomly had this weekend thing, invited a few people over, and I went and I walk in the door, and who's sitting there? Jen.
And not only that, but
And
you brought the most delicious desserts.
oh, yeah, from the French bakery. And what Jen brings into your life when you know her is she gets this connection to who you are on such a deep level that, even if we don't speak for months at a time, every couple of weeks, I get an email with the subject line, "Soulful Introduction." And she has introduced me to some of the most incredible people, many of which are in this visibility project, this 50 over 50 visibility project. And it's such a treat that comes in to my mailbox because I know we're connected, even if we don't talk, even if we're not, actively in each other's lives on a regular basis. We have this connection, and I can only imagine how many people you're touching in that way, and it always just makes me feel so special.
Thank you. I mean, I really want to be of service to individuals, and you know, I'm pretty generous, sometimes like crazy generous.
Yeah, you are.
I remember when I first started. being a coach, and was a limiting belief. But this woman was like, "Well," I was like, "Well, you could talk to this coach, and you could talk to this coach, and you could talk to," and she's like, "No, no, no. Let me be clear. I want to work with you." And I was like, "Oh, it didn't even cross my mind." But I really ask two questions when I talk to people: What do you want, and what do you need?
Yeah.
And if I don't have a resource, I know enough people who have resources.
Yes.
And why hold that back?
No, I agree. That's how I operate as well. And I'm always doing the same thing, connecting people, sending people things that I find, emails that I get, and I've got like this Rolodex in my head of what people do, what they represent, who they are, and I'm always sharing things. And I just think that that is something that's important to do when we're all pretty much alone, we're flying solo.
Yeah, and more so than ever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And I think it also shows a really powerful way that a being that, in my verbiage, when with God, business is good, right? So that air of generosity gets returned to you tenfold, and when you give freely, you receive freely.
Mhm,
And so often, you know I think people aren't even used to asking for what they need or what they want. And I was talking to my boyfriend the other day, and he's like, "Well, I don't know unless you ask." And I thought, "Oh, wait, you're not a mind reader? Like, what?"
how'd that happen?
Right, like, right. And so often, I think, especially strong women, especially independent women, especially fierce women, especially women who want to make a difference, they can sit and are afraid to let their vulnerability show, to
Mhm,
ask for something. And I always say, if everyone's doing all this giving, who's doing the receiving?
mm.
And so, it's my intention to say yes to more receiving on a daily basis, and quite often I am tested on breaking that, the limitations of that belief of not receiving, and being safe, being vulnerable.
I've had to learn that, and I've really a health issue really puts that into perspective. That's when I learned how to do that.
Yeah, and let's not all of us get to that. I
No,
mean,
don't wait to it's not
right,
necessary,
let's
but
not like that, do it the easy way. I mean, I remember 2 years ago when I broke my ankle, being like, I the dog had to go out, and I was like so traumatized to ask anyone for help that I walked down the two flights of, it's actually three flights of stairs, outside at pitch black, like, because it's winter, with the dog. And my landlord going, "Jen, why didn't you ask for help? We would have helped you." And I was like, ah. And he's like, "Why do you don't have a shoe on?" The other foot didn't have a shoe because I was so like freaked out, right? And then I'm like, I don't know, Marlene. I can't ask for help. And he's like, "Okay, let's start small." And I was like, "Oh my God, I love you so much."
but
Right.
you
But
pro
like,
you probably had 14 different scenarios of how you were gonna get down the steps, but you didn't think to ask for help, right?
or to put a shoe on, right? Like, right. And I remember sitting in the grocery store, talking to my friend Maria, and being at a very low point, and she's going, I don't know, there's no money, I don't know what to do. And she goes, "Ask me for $100." I was like, I literally can't, like, I couldn't even. She's like, "Ask me." And I was like, I'm hysterically crying out in the grocery store. I'm the crazy woman in the grocery store going, I can't. She's like, "Why?" I was like, "Because I'm ashamed."
Mhm.
Right? Like, shame is a dream killer,
Oh,
everyone. Like, it's just a dream killer. So I asked for it. Right. And those big moments are always ones that kind of, the other side of that is huge abundance, love, opportunity.
yes.
And my goal is not to cross those thresholds with so much pain from now
Yeah.
on.
Well, when it's a circle, and this you may have been the person that helped me see this. Um, giving and receiving is a circle, and if you
That
give
was
and you
me.
don't receive, you break that circle.
There's like the whole engine stops,
Yeah.
right? And then you're then you all start to like give from that lack, and it,
Mhm.
it creates this whole weird thing.
Yeah,
So
well, it drains you. There's
yeah,
nothing left. You give to the point of there being nothing left, and that's
you're
not a good
dust.
place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would recommend to everyone really tuning in and looking at their energetic giving and receiving circle, and see where they're over giving,
Yes.
and look at different relationships, because we tend to overgive in different relationships. I have that cheat about how do I choose clients, which is the Peanuts characters, right, from Charles Schultz. Like, my people are Sally's and Linus's.
Mhm.
And before I even talk to someone, or as I'm talking, I just tune in and I ask my soul to give me who they are as a Peanuts character. And I'm always present during the conversation. But if they're not a Linus or a Sally, I'm not going to try to make them my client,
Yeah.
because it's going to be torture for me.
Yeah, Lucy's not fitting.
Oh my God, Lucy always pulls that damn football. And I used to take on Lucy's, and I'd be like, oh, she's going to pull the football. And
Yeah.
then I was like, I remember the moment I stopped taking Lucy's. There was this woman I was supporting, and she was starting to blame me for her life. And I said, I don't think I can support you or help you. I'm going to give you back your money. And we
Yeah.
were like, mostly through her program. I'm like, I'm going to give back every cent. And
Yeah.
she's like, what? I was like, I don't think I can help you. And that, I'm going to do that. And it was such a freeing moment. And who I decided to take on from clients from that moment forward were amazing people. I mean, I have the most amazing people as clients.
Oh, I just saw you light up. Okay, so
Yeah.
now that segues really well into this question I have for you. What's in your soul?
In my soul, it's a combination. If it's that amazing in the beginning of 1984 Wonder Woman, where you see that little Diana, all in her armor with the freckled face, that is the exact image of who I am, right? I am fierce, I am loyal, and yet there's this wonderful innocence and compassion of who I am. And I am tough, and yet I can be funny,
Mhm.
and so that's who I am at my core. I want the best for everyone, and I will fight for the best for everyone. And I'm also on that list. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, it does, and there's a childlike quality.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now when you whether you're working or not working, but, like, when you meet somebody, like, what do you see when you look at them? Like, because 'cause you're looking into layers, you're not just looking at surface.
Yeah. I mean, I, I don't look so deep unless I have permission, because that's
Mhm.
a violation. But I always go, okay, here's what I know, and it's leaking off of you like Pepe Le Pew, right? I can hear where people are out of the consciousness of love in their voice.
Mhm,
I can see where they're in conflict with what they think and what they want. I can see or understand on the level who they are at the core and who they want to be. And I also just know when a person has a warrior energy.
mhm,
I just know that. And I know when a person has this big dream that they want to create. I've always picked my friends. Uh, I'm laughing at myself because I'll say the second part in a second. I've always picked my friends by looking at them and going, yes, that's a person I want to be friends with. That kind of sparkliness. Now, I've always picked my men prior to Warner by looking at a guy and going, no, I don't want to be involved with them, and then I get involved with them. I solve that thing.
but okay, now you mentioned warrior energy. Can you explain what warrior energy is?
Yeah, warrior energy is some qualities. We'll talk about the qualities: fierce loyalty, deep courage, independence, wants to champion others. Those are warrior traits. And there are souls that just have warrior energy. And 9 out of 10 times when I go warrior energy, a person will go, they'll nod their head, even if they don't really have a definition.
Mhm.
There are amazing sustainable traits. The
Mhm.
unsustainable traits can wreak havoc in our lives, like
Mhm.
never leave a man down,
Mhm.
right? Being loyal to a fault,
Yes.
the lone wolf syndrome. Everyone's going, right? Like that's unsustainable. And we need to move that into consciousness,
Mhm.
because when a warrior is focused and conscious, what often happens is they decide something, reach out their hand, and it falls into it.
Yeah.
I've crashed cars by being an unsustainable warrior, right? And so I don't think a lot of people talk about warrior energy as a thing.
Mhm.
You know, there's this thing called the warrior gene, and they did this study and analyzed blood of all of these people. And what they found out was individuals that actually had the gene to be warrior, aggressive, and all of that, there were more monks with that gene than there were gang members,
Oh, wow.
right? And so there's this thing in human nature of that hero, right? We've seen so many stories about the hero, right?
Mhm.
Think of your traditional hero image, and that's a warrior in action.
Mhm. And that's basically the premise of every story.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and why do often do we deny who we are? I mean, I remember the moment that I accepted my warrior nature, you know, and the it was something that I was always at battle with. I was always told, "You're too aggressive. Why are you being so stubborn? Why do you are barking against authority?" And I'd be like, "Because all of you people that are in charge, you're nuts. You're
Yeah.
not doing it right, right?"
But no, not just that, they wanna keep you down. I mean, I had the same thing. I was really afraid of my strength
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to use it,
Right.
and I was afraid of what I was capable of. And the people around me were very invested in keeping me down. And
And that makes me sad.
yeah, and for most of my life, I mean, I didn't really start to claim my strength until I was in my mid-40s. And now
And
don't even like,
right,
please.
you're like, please, like, so often I think people, I always say I was really angry. And the people that know me now go, "What?" I'm like, "No, I was really angry." Because one of the things about all of that, having been kept down, having been told I'm too big, too aggressive, too loud, too whatever,
Whatever, yeah.
right? You start to really hate yourself.
Yeah.
You start to feel like, what's wrong with you? And once you deeply love and accept yourself, which is only really truly capable by having those deep conversations
And
with your soul.
and with my experience too, I really liked who I was, and I was like, "These people want me to change. I don't wanna change." I did that with jobs too. I was like, "If I keep this job, I'm going to have to change who I am. I don't wanna change who I am. I'm gonna leave." I said, "I'm either gonna make this job work for me or I'm gonna leave," and I always made the job work for me somehow, some
I
way.
love that. Yeah, and I remember I had those those champions at
Mhm.
certain jobs,
Yes,
right? I
yes.
remember this story in PR about Herb Corbin. God, I loved Herb. Herb Corbin going, I walked into one of the partners' offices and he's like, "Okay, go write this up and pitch it." And I was like, "No, Adam, I don't write."
Mm,
And he goes, "What?" I go, "Adam, I don't write." And he gets on the phone with Herb and he goes, "She's saying she's not going to write this pitch." And you hear Herb slam the phone down and use curse words I've never heard before in any kind of thing, and goes, "She doesn't write." Right? I think it's really important that you have those champions and allow those champions to support you, right? So you can ease into a deeper knowing of yourself, and so they can
mhm.
hold a space of who you are in a
Yeah,
deep, essential nature.
yeah. Yeah, I was a legal secretary that had access to the executive group.
Yeah, I bet that drove a lot of people crazy.
Yeah, it did, it
Yeah,
did, but you know what? I plowed my way through that law firm and found things that didn't work, and I fixed them. I fixed everything I touched. They sent me all over the world to do this,
I
and
love
I was
that.
really,
And you're
really
still
good
doing it in different
at
versions of
it.
it.
I'm doing it on my terms now,
Yeah.
and it's what I do. I can't my son, like, we just moved him into an apartment last weekend, and like, with everything that we're doing, I have, like, a plan A, B, C, D, Q, R, S, T, and he just keeps laughing at me. He's like, "Could you stop?" I said, "I really can't. I'm sorry. It will
No,
be physically painful for me to stop."
and I love, I mean, that's the way I do with businesses, right? Like I always can help grow a business. You
Yeah,
know, I'll be chatting with the neighbor downstairs. I'll be like, "Oh, do you know what you can do?" Blah 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 blah. Or, like yesterday the checkout girl at Whole Foods, right? She was like, she was just shocked
okay.
for a moment. I was like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "The guy just gave me $2 as a tip." She's like, I'm like, "Well, accept it." She's like, "But I was like, accept." She's like, "Oh, okay." And then I was like, I had change left over. I was like, "I'm supposed to give this to you." She's like, "No, no." I'm like, "I'm supposed to give this to you." Right? It's allowing things to be bigger for people
Yeah,
just by offering them the opportunity.
yeah, and you and I both have that ability, to be able to see what people can't see,
Yeah.
and I discounted that for so long, and I don't do that anymore.
And
That's
I love
that's
that.
that's secret sauce.
Yeah. And I think it also, it can, unless you accept it in a deep level, it can be quite terrifying for someone experiencing it, and for you when it's happening, right?
Yeah, I
And
didn't know how
the
to I didn't know how to talk about it.
right.
You really helped me with that, and I
Thank you.
didn't know how to talk about it, and I didn't like, it scared me. It just like, I didn't know what it was capable of. Like, I didn't like, there was this whole part of me that I had no idea what it was capable of doing, and I was so afraid of it being dark, but it's really
Yeah.
not dark. It
No.
could be. It could be.
I mean, it's all how you wield your energy, right? And here's the thing. People who worry about being dark or hurting people with their power have never hurt people with their power, right?
No.
The people who are abuse their power never think about abusing their, or worried about it, right?
No,
So
no,
you
that's
don't
the
need
goal.
this, right? You don't need the stop gap. The
Yeah.
question that you get to ask around power is, you know, what, how do I want to utilize this for my greatest good and the greatest good of others? And if
Yes.
you ask that one question every day, that is your fail safe, and you don't have to worry about putting any other restraints on you.
No, and it's so funny that you say that because without knowing any of this, since I was a kid and I basically raised myself, I had 2 goals every day, and I raised my son the same way. When you leave the house, you start your day, whatever it is, the goal is to learn at least one thing new and to help somebody. And until you do those 2 things, your day is not done.
Love that.
And that's what you just said, right? It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
but I love it. I love it. It's just another way of, like, I think it's really important that people have multiple tools that do the same thing,
Mhm.
because as our consciousness grows, so does our ego, and we can outsmart ourselves, right?
Yes.
And so we really want just to see what we're putting into the relationship field. And because you're in a relationship field with everything on this planet, are you putting in consciousness, or are you putting in pain and programming?
Mhm. Yep. And, yeah, I don't know how I knew these things, I just knew them.
Yeah, your
And
soul was just speaking to you and you listened.
yeah, I didn't listen to a lot, but I listened to a few things. I've learned over the years. Okay, so I want to ask you something else. So your work from you have trained, and these numbers might be off, they might be bigger now, but you have trained 30 people in your methodology, and collectively, you have helped 5,000 people connect with their soul language. Through
Yeah.
that body of work, what is the legacy you want to create? What is the thing that you want, the imprint that you want to make that goes out into future generations?
I want people to remember that they're whole and complete, right? And I think, I mean, that's my sacred purpose, to remember that I'm whole and complete and then offer that to others. I think that soul language is a great paradigm to do that. You know, it provides people with a structure that helps them connect to that wholeness and completeness. I, you know, I mean, I'm 53, right? Technically, I have a lot less time than I've lived, which is a whole thing to look at. But I want people, the legacy that I leave behind is I want people to think about me and the work and feel a deep sense of comfort, peace, and wholeness and completeness. Right? I don't think anyone can ask for more than that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, Lee just chimed in, and she said she's currently in a deal with her ego and her own consciousness. Is there any bit of advice you can offer to her?
Yeah, don't ego's here for a purpose. It's here to serve. Don't make it in conflict or war with it. I would put ego at your table and ask ego what it wants, because it actually needs something from you. And it's also a way of turning you towards true north, right? That
Mhm.
essential nature. So make it your friend.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Thank
That's
you,
great
Lee.
advice. Okay, so now I want to ask, so what happened to you? You just said you were 53. What happened when you turned 50? Because I'm not a demographics person, but this turning 50, there's
Yeah.
something happens.
Um, it was wow. Like, I think there's the reflection part of turning 50, right? There's the what have I accomplished? What have I experienced? What do I want to create more? And then there's the other part of you that goes, screw that. Like, I'm 50. I don't have to listen to your crap or say or do anything I don't want to. There's a huge, huge freeing of it
Yeah.
and going, whatever. Like, so I think there's a huge dichotomy of it. There's also an integrating of wisdom and an embodiment and going, oh wait, I really experienced a lot. I really know a lot. I know that there's more that I don't know, and to really have an open mind. And I think at 50, I don't have anything to prove anymore.
Yeah.
And really living into that, embodying all of that. And I finally get that cliche about, oh, I wish I knew what I know at 50 that when I was young. But I
Hmm.
wouldn't have listened, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the whole laugh.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That whole adage of when you're ready, the teacher shows up is
yeah,
so true.
exactly. And I'm still 18 in my head.
Yeah.
Like I it's like 18, it's like a wisdom filled 18, but I'm still that 18-year-old that wants to experience adventure and beautiful things. And I mean, yeah, there's things in my life that everyone can change. But a friend of mine, Rebecca, said a couple of weeks ago, I'm really happy about my life. And I took that moment to reflect on, am I really happy about my life? And there are things that I'm really happy about, and there are things that I want to change or transform, which I'm working on. And then there's things that I'm never going to transform because they're out of my control,
Hmm.
and letting go of things that aren't in my control.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Lee's comments.
Yeah. You and
Go
Lee,
Lee,
you
go
and Lee
Lee,
need to
go
connect.
Lee,
You and
go Lee.
Lee, you and Lee would really like each other.
I'm putting it down.
Okay. Consider this my soulful connection.
Woohoo!
um, so let's see what else I have to ask you, Miss Jennifer. Um, who or what inspires you?
I get inspired by, at one point in my life, I would have been like, no human being inspires me. And I think I was just being a prideful little brat. I I get inspired by a lot of things. I think the more that I slow down, the more I have the opportunity to be inspired by everything around me. I
Mhm.
think I spend most of my life moving too fast. I love to read. So, I will get an inspiration from something I read that leads me down to this hole, that leads me down to that hole.
That, you know what? PR brain.
Yeah.
We both have that.
um, and often I get inspired by people I love, right? Like my friend Rebecca, she's so highly creative. Like she's always creating something or doing something or looking at something. And so God, that kind of leaks over into me. Warner is my boyfriend, such an artist that he gets inspired by this. One of the things I love for inspiration is going to the Japanese food market.
Oh,
Oh
yes.
my God. I One day I will buy the square watermelon that's $100.
Mm.
But I love to experience new things. It always fires off my brain in such amazing ways. And Lee, I will connect with you when we get off the phone or the Zoom thing or the StreamYard or whatever this is.
Yeah, there is so much out there to just, and it's just changing so fast. I'm so inspired by all of the changes that are coming through technology, and there
Yeah,
are
you inspired me around AI. I was like, no way.
right,
Uh,
that's
right.
right.
And then
That's
you
right.
introduced me, and I was like, oh, the angels are singing.
Yeah,
Like, I'm like, I could take all my content, drop it in this thing, and it spits out all this new content that's already mine.
yeah.
That was very inspirational. And I thank you for that. And that was I respect and love you. So you said, look at this. And I let my pride down and went, oh,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
you're
no.
right.
Well, what I said to you was I said, "Put your own name in there and see what comes up,"
That's
and
true.
then what you saw came up was real.
Was real. And it wasn't like, oh, scary. Yeah.
No, and then that's just it. It's like um, when you can see what, uh, uh, um, what it's sharing with you is accurate,
Right.
um, then you kinda buy into it, but you have to be mindful because there is a lot
Yeah.
of they call it hallucinations, and it's an accurate term.
I like that.
But when you put your own content in there, it's it's feeding you different versions of your own content, and it's
Easy,
brilliant.
different versions that make my life much easier. And
Yeah,
because I have so much
much
content,
content. Yes.
right? Like I have the Soul to Business, which has 15 or 17 different categories and over 500 tools. Like
Mhm,
it's a mega mall of consciousness, right? That because I just love to create, that actually helps me create in a whole new way.
mhm. Yeah, because you can categorize it differently, and you can create different versions of things that you have, and it's incredible for repurposing content.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's good, that's fun. I've been having a great time with it, and, okay, so we are just at about a half an hour, and that's how long these interviews go. What I would love for you to share is, like, a last thought of, what you want people to experience with their own soul. Like, if you can just, like, sprinkle a little dust on everybody and they can have this one little connection,
Yeah.
regardless of who they are, what would that be?
Yeah. I always do an exercise with people about understanding their baseline of their soul. So, if you're not driving, don't do this. But if you can close your eyes and just tune into your heart and ask your heart, your soul to vividly and clearly show to you in a way you understand what the baseline of your soul is, that heartbeat. So at any time you can tune back into that baseline if you're feeling afraid or nervous? Anything came up for you, Miss Donna?
Anytime I connect with my soul, I see yellow.
Then you can ask what that means. For me, that means there's yellow is always this strong sense of will.
Well,
Like, right? Like there is no stopping you.
yeah,
Like you decide and that is it. And for times when we're in fear or, the world is spinning out of control and we're the eye of the storm, knowing that you have a strong sense of will is can be very comforting, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the message it gives me is you already have this. Like, cut it out.
Right. You got this, baby.
Yeah, yeah. And from my soul language, my axiom of translation is the sun. So I don't know if that.
Rising to enlightenment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is so much. Go and visit Jen's website, soullanguage.us. And I mean, the amount of information that's on there, like book out 4 or 5 days.
Content.
And reach out to her, connect with her. She is somebody that just brings wonderful things into your world. And
Thank you.
I am just honored to be able to introduce you to more people.
Thank you so much. I adore you. I'm so glad that I know you. I'm so glad that, I know at any point you are a phone call, a text, a message away. And I value what you put out into the world and the impact that you've had on my world. So thank you.
Mhm. I love that. And lots more to come. And thank you for being part of this project because I'm cooking up some new things. So I might reach out to you for some brainstorming.
Yay!
Yeah, we're going into the next phase with this. We have the foundation built. You are the 13th interview.
Love
56
that.
women up on the website and about
Wow.
10 more coming that all said yes in the last week. And we're going for 200.
Good. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna make a ruckus. And thanks, and come back every Wednesday noon. We are here at noon Eastern time with somebody new. All of the interviews are available on replay on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on the real50over50.com website. And please connect with all of these wonderful women that are sharing their wisdom, their knowledge, and what they know. And hope to see you back next week. Thanks.
Thank you.